Love's beautiful, but let's be real, it's not always easy. It can bring out our deepest fears, our strongest desires, and sometimes our most confusing patterns. Welcome to Love Better, a space for honest, soul deep conversations about relationships, attachments, and what it really means to love and be loved. I am Shazmin Bank, and if you've ever questioned why love feels so complicated, you are not alone. Let's unpack this together. How do I know if I should stay and try in my relationship? How do I know that this time it's actually over and I need to have the courage to leave? Or how do I know that I'm playing a role in the relationship being or coming to an end? And what do I do when every single time I want to leave the relationship, they change? And then that change never lasts, and I end up staying, and the cycle repeats. What do I do with that? Or how do I know that I've given it my all and I'm not seeing them wanting change, but that they kind of assume being married to me is a guaranteed bond to take me for granted and stay with me forever? How do I handle family, friends in my decision of wanting to leave? And, just the bottom line is, do I make an effort and stay? Do I just stay for the sake of staying? Do I stay for the kids? Do I leave? And why am I leaving? Or what do I need to be pushed at to leave the relationship? And what does a healthy relationship look like? What should I be staying for? There's so much confusion and so many thoughts, and it's not as simple as black and white when we look at relationships like this. What happens when you're dealing with someone that has an attachment style that's avoidant? What do you do when someone's fearful avoidant? What do you do when someone's dismissive? What do you do when you are married to someone that's narcissistic? And culturally, religiously, socially, the hierarchy of the family dictates that it's not that simple to leave. And here's the truth. If you are listening to this episode, it's most likely that deep down inside, you do know you need to leave. And what do? We play these games with ourselves. We play these games on, I'm going to end up waiting for it to get really bad. I'm going to wait for this one more time they cheat on me. I'm going to catch them one more time on their phone. I'm waiting for them to hit me one more time. I'm waiting for them to gaslight me one more time. We wait for this one more time, each time, to be able to garner strength and courage to say no more. And the first thing I want to be able to say is, it takes a lot of courage to stay in a situation because it's not so easy to leave. It takes a lot of courage to keep trying to make a relationship work. And if I was to look at attachment styles in a situation like this, I have to be able to say that if you look at somebody who's securely attached, they are not somebody that's going to stay in a relationship that is not fulfilling, where they are unseen, where there's a complete breakdown in communication, where there's no trust and respect, where the foundation of honesty, of compassion, of compromise, of empathy, of safety does not exist. Someone who's securely attached will probably end up in a relationship where they try and they put in a huge effort with the person that they're with. But when they can see that they're not getting back what they do know they deserve and what they do know is their worth, and they are very clear on their needs and the needs are not being met, and they have tried tirelessly to have communication with their partner and nothing's changing, secure people will move on. But somebody that's anxiously attached, this is probably the attachment that has the deepest loyalty and the ability to feel that they have to stick out the relationship no matter what. Because somebody that's anxiously attached thinks that staying in a relationship longer could mean that they could change the minds of the person that they're with. And somebody that's anxiously attached doesn't already understand that if they're in an unhealthy relationship, they have probably compromised their standards, their dreams, their needs. They have lost who they are, what they want, their self-respect towards themselves. They are steeped in shame and guilt for how they continuously lose themselves and lower their standards in hope that the person that they are in a relationship with will finally see them, finally love them, finally respect everything that they lost in order to be with them. The career they didn't chase, the anxiety they chose to live with, how much they tolerated, how much they said it doesn't matter who you are, because in marriage or a long-term relationship, what it takes to make this relationship works means all the mistakes that are made get excused, and all the wrongs, all the cheating, all the verbal abuse, all the emotional neglect. There's this deep understanding anxiously attached people tend to put into motion, which is, I know where they're coming from. I know they love me. I know that they're a good person. I know what we had in the beginning. I know what we've shared. I know when my partner shows up to love me, it feels so good and I get to experience, quote in, quote out, the real them. So that when they treat me better, I just have to pull through long enough and try and convince them to bring out the other version of themselves and hope that version stays longer this time. And if I behave and I don't rock the boat and I don't set boundaries and I don't make the relationship complicated and I don't ask for anything and I become this perfect person that shows them that nobody else could love you the way I do. Nobody else will tolerate and put up with the things that I have. So if I've made all these sacrifices to be with you, then you will eventually choose me. And so anxiously attached people tend to be the person that stays in a relationship past its expiry date. Because to somebody that's anxiously attached, you don't give up on love. You don't give up on the person that you see deep down inside. But I want you to take a moment and think about when you are in an unhealthy relationship, you never pause to digest how unhealthy that relationship is, because you are so fixated on chasing potential. You are so fixated on the outcome that you feel you deserve because you do deserve it. You are so fixated on validation and reassurance from this person. You are so fixated on the picture you have in your mind on what your family could eventually look like, how you will eventually be loved and feel, and the deepest love your partner will have for you, because they will see all the sacrifice and finally understand all the tears you cried that they never knew about, and you will have your dream relationship. And so you keep staying because it's not about the fact that they love bomb you. It's about when they move past their wounds or they get numb enough to their wounds, their love for you shows up. And that's when you feel the most love and the most seen, because you've never paused to think about the fact that this relationship is not what you want, because you are challenged by trying to create a relationship that you want. So what happens if you stop being the glue? What happens if you stop trying? What happens if you stop making the effort in that relationship? What happens if you back off? What happens if every time they need you to understand their temper tantrums? What happens if you are finally in a place where you pause and you're numb enough to just see the relationship for what it is? What would happen? Because it takes a lot of courage to sit in that kind of pain. And it takes a lot for somebody that's anxiously attached to let go. Because somebody that's anxiously attached, I really think is, like I've said before, they're the penguin. They want to find that one partner. They want to find the one partner that they dream with, the one partner they grow with, the one partner that they have the deepest sexual experiences with, the deepest emotional connection with, the deepest mental chatter with, the deepest talks, the walks where they're held. They are seeking such deep levels of connection with somebody else. What happens if you pause in a relationship that you're confused about? And I say that because you could be confused, but deep down inside, if you listen to your gut, you know you're not confused. You're just scared. You're scared to see the truth. And the truth is, you've not invested in yourself. You've not paused to invest in the connection with yourself. You've not paused to see yourself. You've never felt worthy of a better love. You feel worthy of the relationship you're in. You feel worthy of the ups and downs because you've normalized them. And there's a difference. Listen, there's a difference with ups and downs in a relationship. There's a difference with the gray area in a relationship. The gray area is there's love, there's communication, there's connection, there's desire, there's passion, there's spirituality, there is growth, there is repair, there is healthy levels of conflict. And the gray to that is they can be a bad season where your partner or you go through financial stress, loss of a family member, sickness or illness in your health, but you're dealing with an external factor that can throw the relationship off. But the difference is you've had enough of a stacking in foundation. You have enough in the bank of your relationship to be able to see that we're going through a really turbulent, long season. And the secret to that is to not let this become a habit or a pattern. It's the ability to break the cycle and know that you both have the tools and the willingness to be able to get out of this gray area in the relationship. But what's different with a relationship that makes you question that you should leave is the fact that in your gut, you know that you have settled too long, and it takes a lot of courage to really pause and see the situation for what it is. Now, if we move along a little bit, okay, so we're thinking about how do I know if I should leave? We'll look at signs of what makes the relationship not something that is healthy enough to be in. But what if we start with why would you not want to leave the relationship? Well, what happens if you're in a relationship where you both meet each other's needs? What happens when one person is off and the other person notices that their partner's off and they want to fix and repair that in a healthy way? Because in a safe, beautiful relationship that you don't want to leave, you're with somebody that sees you. You're with somebody that anticipates your moods. They anticipate what life could throw at you and how you could handle that or not handle that. They are really curious to how you emotionally feel. They're curious to how they can sexually open you up. They're curious to the intimacy that both of you can build. They're curious with how they can repair. They're curious about the conflict you have and how to navigate and break the cycles that could keep you both trapped and have patterns and cycles of conflict that don't allow you both to connect, but instead pull you apart. You don't want to leave somebody that is your raving fan. You don't want to leave someone that makes you a priority. You don't want to leave someone that's human and has bad days and bad moments and goes through the gray bad season areas, but is still committed to you. Your foundation of honesty and trust and respect and compromise and compassion, empathy and safety isn't questioned. That's really important to think about. We have 6 human needs, and it's really important when we're in a relationship to think about, am I fulfilling the 6 human needs for my partner, and is my partner fulfilling the 6 human needs for me in various different ways? The first human need is significance. How significant do I make my partner feel? How much do I praise them and see them? How much do I make them feel like they are getting this right and I support them? How significant does my partner make me feel emotionally, mentally, in my career, in simple things with just how I cook and show up being a father or mother? How significant do I feel in my relationship with my partner? Out of 10, if right now you pulled out a diary and you answered very honestly between 0 to 10, how significant does your partner make you feel, and how significant do you make your partner feel? What would you write? What would you say? The next human need is love and connection. How connected do I feel to my partner? Because without love and without connection, you have a roommate situation. How desired does my partner feel with me? How connected and free does my partner feel to be around me, to want to share with me? The ultimate of this is, how loved do I feel, and how much love do I give my partner, and how much love does my partner give me? Because love is an action. So love and connection means, do I know my partner's needs, and do they know mine? Do I even know the first 5 immediate needs that I have? And do I communicate that to my partner and let them know, these are my needs and this is how you could meet them? And when you meet my needs, or I meet my needs in an external way, in a different way, because I need my partner essentially to be able to meet fundamental needs. That's the point of being in a relationship. Otherwise, I might as well be single. But in a relationship, when I'm looking at love and connection, then out of 10, how connected do I feel to my partner? How connected does my partner feel to me? The third human need is certainty and uncertainty. The need for safety, stability, and comfort, the essentials of a relationship. How safe does my partner feel with me, and how safe do I feel with my partner? How comfortable am I to be who I am? How comfortable am I to be vulnerable? How open am I to knowing my partner sees me and takes me for who I am? So again, out of 10, how certain do you feel with your partner that you both have a need for safety, stability, and comfort, and you create that for each other? And on a scale of 0 to 10, how certain are you for your partner, and how certain is your partner for you? And the fourth human needs variety. The need for change, the need for something different, the need for having healthy space, healthy external hobbies, healthy external friends, the need to go out into the world and do something so different and come back into our relationships and bring that beautiful information into the relationship. How much variety do you have as a couple? How much variety do you bring into your relationships as a couple? And again, 0 to 10, how much variety do you bring into the relationship? How much variety does your partner bring in? The fifth and sixth human need, fifth being growth and sixth being contribution. Growth is a need to develop, to expand, to go beyond yourself, to want to learn. Because like Tony Robbins says, because these 6 human needs come from Tony Robbins' teachings. If you're not growing, you're dying. So how much growth do you both have in the relationship in terms of growing with your hobbies, growing with your body, growing with, doing something mentally together, growing spiritually together? Just the growth of the relationship with self and the growth as a couple together. 0 to 10, how much growth do you have? How much do you inspire your partner to want to grow and be a better person? And how much do they inspire you? And then contribution, which is a need to go beyond yourself and give to others, service, contribute to animals, to human beings, to your community. How much contribution do you and your partner bring into your lives together, and how much contribution do you both take out into the world as a couple together? How much service goes beyond the two of you? 0 to 10. And this is just a basic place to begin and say, this gives me an eye-opening into, am I with someone that fulfills me, and am I fulfilling someone? And it just gives you this beautiful barometer on, okay, if we're not scoring so well and our love is something that is stable and willing, and I'm with a partner that's so open to wanting to work on this relationship, then I'm going to sit down and look at my needs in all these areas and then be able to explain to my partner how they can meet it for me. And I'm going to sit down with so much openness and curiosity on how I can meet my partner's needs. Can you both be who you really are without second guessing your feelings? Because you don't want to leave a relationship where you can truly be who you are. The relationship has so much compatibility. You both feel aligned with values, beliefs, and principles, and you respect each other's differences and different opinions. Because I always give an example to couples I work with, and I say, when you put 2 plates together, it's going to make noise. And you're both 2 beautiful, dynamic, healthy beings with different beliefs and different opinions. And it's so healthy to sometimes have that autonomy with your beliefs and opinions, but the respect that your partner appreciates your opinions. It's not a fight. It's not something that has you stay small and fearful to not want to express because you could lose the other person. It causes a problem. You can co-regulate with each other. You both have the ability that when something goes wrong, you can come into this relationship and feel so safe to be vulnerable and cry and confused and lost. And you have a partner that will sit with you through that process. And they're not in a hurry to leave. Their world is you in a moment where you need them. Because anxiously attached people have to learn to get better in self-regulation. But what makes a relationship so powerfully beautiful is the ability to co-regulate for each other, for the couple to feel we can come together. And when we do, if one of us is low or both of us are feeling so uncertain in a moment, my partner's got me. There's nowhere else this person wants to be than here in this moment with me right now. And to make sure that if we part ways right now to do different things and continue our day when my partner is feeling closer to a 10 than when they sat down to have this chat with me. You never want to leave a relationship with someone that shows you you are their number one priority no matter what's going on in their world. They don't judge you when you're with them. They don't create shame for some of the secret thoughts and deep, dark desires and fantasies you could have. They are curious about you. They find you so delicious as a person. They're healthily obsessed with you. Healthily, meaning they are fine with their autonomy, but equally want to spend all their time with you in a healthy way because they love being with you and your company matters so much to them. It's something that's so beautiful to be able to experience. you are also with somebody that has the same goals in marriage or with children, with finances, you're aligned. And if you're not aligned, you have the ability to discuss it in a healthy way and figure out your timelines as a couple. Figure out your timelines with marriage and children, how finances will work. It's not a deal breaker. And your ability to repair conflict, that is going to leave you both knowing that you feel so safe and feel that you can voice what you need to voice and you're not scared. So those are some really simple, easy, basic places to think about. This is why I would stay in a relationship, because it's a no-brainer. I've truly found my person. My nervous system feels so calm and relaxed around them. I'm not with them because of fear that I will get the "I told you so." This person goes out of their way for me, and they think about me and they know me and they've taken the time to love me. Now, the purpose of the podcast, the other side is, why do I leave? When do I leave? Should I leave? I want to leave, but now they've changed. Well, you got to think about the first thing. What happens if I want to leave? I've talked to my partner and I've told them I'm leaving because of infidelity, or there has been, an addiction in that relationship and something that's just not changing. And I've communicated to my partner and there's no growth. They are taking me for granted. And I feel that I'm the one person doing all the work in the relationship. And there's this fear, if I stop doing the work, they won't be a relationship. Well, then deep down inside, I don't have to tell you, if you are being taken for granted and not seen, and you're with somebody that will not communicate with you and will not have the hard conversations and will not work on their attachment style to show up for the relationship because this relationship matters, and they want to override and change the blueprint of their attachment style to be able to be more secure. And it's not about perfection. It's about striving and knowing that you're with somebody that might not fit like a glove, but you both work that relationship and you make sure that the other person knows they're loved, because love is a verb and they know it and they feel it and they experience it, and it's not something they question. Does my partner love me? Or they settle with the fact that my partner loves me, but I understand why they can't do or show up in the relationship. That's when the attachment work becomes yours. That's when the lack of self-worth is something you need to start looking at. That's when you pause to say, without shame and without guilt and without judging myself and crucifying myself, I pause to think about what wounds lay within me that are allowing me to tolerate the things that I'm tolerating right now in my relationship. When did it become okay? When did it become okay to endure so much pain and be praised for being the person that has stuck out these really tough, hard times with no change, versus being praised for growth and repair as a couple? You see, there are a lot of people that have to stay in a relationship they don't want to be in, but they know culturally, religiously, financially, or for the sake of their children, they will stay. They have to stay. And there has to be no shame around somebody that has to stay for longer until they heal enough and don't need the last abusive word, or they don't need someone to cheat on them one last time, or there is no hope that this narcissistic person will change, because if you are with someone narcissistic, they do have this amazing ability to devalue you to a point where you've never worked on your self-worth, so you sort of believe them because secretly you really rely on their reassurance and their validation. And what happens when you also reach a point where you know that this person is who they are? They are dismissively, avoidantly attached, and they have such deep wounds, or they're fearfully avoidantly attached, and they have wounds that will always have them play the dynamics of push and pull. And when they love you, and it feels so amazing that it gets you addicted to waiting for the next high from them. But when the lows are low, it's really toxic, and there's so much manipulation and gaslighting. And every time you bring something to the table and you need to talk about how you feel, you're condemned for being too much or going on or not dropping it or not being bigger. Or why do you have to ruin the day? Why are you so sensitive? Why can't you let it go? Why can't you take the joke? And you will be questioning whether you should leave a relationship until you know who you are and you are grounded in your self-worth, and you know your boundaries are not to cast people out, but they are to create safety for yourself and the people around you. You will never question whether you should stay in a relationship when you know you are so deserving of your needs being met, and you know you are not too much, and you are healing the limiting beliefs you have that you should not be a priority and you should be rejected, and you realize that you're married to your mother or you're married to your father, and they are showing you need to heal, and you have the bravery in that relationship to start to see the deep wounds you have. Because very often we say we cannot heal in the environment that caused us to be ill. But what happens when the environment that causes you to be ill is the same environment that's not going to change until you get better? We think that we will leave, and then when we leave, we'll start to feel better. But then what happens when you do leave and you've not worked through your wounds and you've not changed your negative beliefs and you've not honored your nervous system and put all that work together to become someone so much more secure? You've not laid the foundation and rewired yourself to know that you are worthy of your needs, you are worthy of your voice, you shouldn't be terrified to speak, nothing is wrong with you, you are not too much. What happens when you finally know that? The way you will show up in that relationship, you won't be terrified to set boundaries. You won't be terrified to say, I'm not going to tolerate that. You won't be terrified to say, I'm not going to be part of the screaming and the shouting because I'm not happy with the way we're communicating. You won't be terrified to be able to point out bad behavior. You won't be terrified to no longer be a victim, and you will no longer be making them the secret villain. In fact, you'll be comfortable being the villain in somebody's story or somebody's chapter. Because the only person you have to prove your self-worth to is yourself. And then you're not looking for the addiction in the relationship that feeds seeing you when it wants to see you and puts you on a pedestal, and then devalues you so painfully and leaves you curled up like a ball, crying and not understanding what happened. I thought we talked. I thought there was change. What happens when I want to leave a relationship and I've not worked on my wounds, and then I somehow ruminate this person and I go back and I give them another shot? And I always say you'll keep going back until you don't. And that's fine. You keep going back until you realize you are worthy of more, or you keep staying until you realize you are worthy of more. And what happens to some people that end up staying in a relationship way longer than they should? Well, there's something called quiet quitting. because there's some people who culturally have to stay together, religiously have to stay together. There's some family dynamics that push people to stay together, because if you leave, then the business breaks down, or the community will see you in a bad light, or you're ruining your family name. So you have a partner that will quit on you and say, let's just financially stay together and just have this peaceful friendship. But what happens when you are wondering what's changed in the relationship that I'm questioning to leave? What happens if you're quiet quitting or your partner's quiet quitting? What happens when they don't want to argue with you and they don't want to fight with you anymore? They are just exhausted bringing up the same issue because they now have taken a step back to realize nothing changes. What happens when someone stops trying to prove how much they've done for you, how much they loved you? What happens when someone goes silent in the relationship and they slowly quit everything that they were trying to do before? They slowly quit on you because nothing's going to come out of this. And there's a science, there's a science to the addiction of being in a toxic relationship and feeling that the dopamine you get from having someone see you and drop you has you literally go back for more until you finally see yourself and you become the dopamine you've always needed. And a lot of times we can't leave unhealthy relationships because we've just not accepted who we are. And we stay in relationships where someone will belittle us and take us for granted. And there's such deep disconnection in that relationship. You cannot communicate. There's no sexual intimacy. There's no intimacy emotionally, mentally, verbally. You are terrified of talking to them. You live on eggshells. Every time you bring up a pain point, it's an argument, and they make you think like you're crazy and you fight. Every time you try to change who you are and talk calmly and more peacefully, and you work the whole conversation in your head, you don't understand how it's now a screaming match and you're trying to prove that's not what you meant. But the point of that conversation was they were supposed to understand they are not doing X, Y, Z and showing up in the relationship. You're now trying to prove you are worthy because their wounds have you feel like you need to fill them instead of focusing on the wounds that this relationship is showing you you have. What could some of those wounds be? Fear of abandonment, fear of rejection, fear of not being a priority, fear of being too much. Were you the child that grew up and saw that love meant that I shouldn't be seen, I shouldn't have a voice? Love meant that someone could treat me badly and still come hug me from a parent. Love meant that I wasn't allowed to slam my door, I wasn't allowed to voice how I feel, I wasn't allowed to answer back. Love growing up with a parent meant that regardless of how they talked to me, treated me, or the guilt trips they took on me, I still had to show up. And as a child, I want to be so desperately seen by my parent that no matter what they put me through, I will never view my parent in a bad light. I will view myself as a child in a bad light and think I could have done more and I should have done more. And that's what leads to some people being so anxiously attached, is they crave the love of a parent so desperately that they are now married to that parent and they're craving the love of that person. But they're not digesting that if somebody doesn't want to change, someone doesn't want to communicate with you, someone doesn't want to fight that relationship with you, someone's not willing to repair, someone's not willing to see their part, someone's not willing to hold accountability and responsibility for their part in the relationship, then you are the only person in that relationship but you are not focused on a relationship with growing yourself. You're in a relationship trying to convince someone to hold up the mirror so you could see yourself. So we need to be able to think about, if we want to leave a relationship, it takes time, and sometimes we don't have the ability to just walk out. Sometimes we don't have the strength to leave. Sometimes we don't have the finances to leave. Sometimes we make our children the excuse on why we stay. Because children are definitely affected by divorce, 100%. But children are also affected by seeing a broken home with no repair. Children are affected when they see pain shoved under a carpet and they think that's normal. Children are affected when their nervous system is fried at the slamming of a door or the high-pitched voices that they hear at night or they hear during the day. Children are affected when they feel the tension in the room and they're watching for mom and dad's moods because they don't know who's going to go off when. Children are terrified when the door slams shut and they don't know if that's the wind, someone just slammed the door hard enough, or a fight's brewing. We have to consider how we wire our children's nervous systems if we choose to stay in really toxic, abusive relationships. And please, if you have to stay, I don't want you to feel the guilt of it, but I want you to then now start to be responsible to have the conversations and chats with your children if you know you have to stay. You have to check in on them. You have to ask them what they're thinking and they're feeling and what they're seeing and what's their interpretation of what they're seeing. You have to be brave enough to have these chats with your children and let them know that they are safe, even though they're not feeling it. Because there's nothing worse than a child wanting to save a parent and not knowing how to do it, and then growing up with so much animosity and hatred towards watching a parent put their other parent through hell. Or the confusion in a narcissistic family where the person who is a narcissist gets the children to be on their side and view the other parent negatively and alienates that parent. And the other parent just doesn't have a voice and the strength. So they don't convince the children that what they're learning is wrong because they're terrified to speak up. So we need to look at all aspects of a relationship before we leave, because it's not easy. And there are people that really sit with so much shame and so much hurt and are really stuck in cultural situations that won't allow them to leave, and religious situations that will not allow or support them to leave, or guilt trip them into, if you get divorced, it's wrong and you have sinned. Or if you get divorced, you will be the reason your children grow up miserable and happy, and they will probably get divorced as well. But how about the children not growing up seeing a loving home and a loving dynamic? How about when children in that home go and find somebody that treats them as badly, and that's love now, because that's the love they experienced in the home we created for them? So there's so much to think about. Is there infidelity? Is there abuse? When's the last nail in the coffin for you to say no more? Do you have the support to say no more? Do you have somebody in your corner watching you go in and out of that relationship until you're not going back anymore? Do you have the right therapist or counselor, or the right family members, or the right financial aid to help you get out of a situation so you could start again? Because we have to look at the fact that many men and women don't have the financial means to leave. And what if you're stuck in a relationship like that? Then my biggest advice is You now have to understand that you're not in a relationship trying to convince someone to see you and want you. That game is done. The relationship is where it is, and the person has let you know who they are and what they're not willing to do to have a proper relationship. So now you need to start focusing on the things that matter to you, your self-care, your self-care of your emotional and mental capacity and how you're feeling. Do you feel safe with yourself? And how can you start feeling safe with yourself? Where can you start focusing on feeling better with who you are? You have to stay in this relationship, meaning at what point is it just okay to be roommates and you're not going to fight and cause a tantrum because you want to be seen and you want more, but you start to understand you're not going to get that out of this person and you have to be in this really tough situation. And yes, it would be a dream to leave and get space and heal and move on with your life, but you can't do that because that's the reality for a lot of people. There's so much advice out there that says just leave, but you can't. So how do you leave the current relationship and still physically be there, but emotionally detach? And that means you got to focus on who you are. You're not waking up to be loved by them anymore. You're waking up to see yourself and love yourself, which means you have to start doing things that make you feel you respect yourself. Let's start with your body. Let's start with the food you're eating. Let's start with the journaling. Let's start with the podcasts you need to listen to. Let's start with the meditations you need to start. Let's start with looking at the things that you've let yourself go with. Can you join a gym? Can you start running? Can you do things that make you feel so proud of yourself? What can you do right now that would make you feel proud? Where can you take the energy that you put into that relationship that diminished your creativity? Where can you take your creativity back? What can you start? What business have you been thinking of? And if you're still with this partner, where can they financially contribute for you to finally start doing the things you want to do? Can they pay for the course you've wanted to pay to do all? Can they invest in a business you wanted to start? Can you go out and get a job? Can you start somewhere that allows you to get out of the environment and feels fulfilling and refreshing? I had somebody that had to stay in a really painful relationship. And one of the first things they did is they actually went and completed their teacher course. And they were so busy studying that the focus of trying to fix the relationship, make the relationship work, or the pain of dealing with how the relationship isn't working, suddenly that focus went into studying to complete being a teacher. And then there was the excitement of being hired to be a teacher. And then all that love that they had, that they wanted to pour into the relationship, was being poured into their passion and then the children that they were now working and taking care of in being a teacher. And that eventually built up their self-worth. Because when other teachers were seeing them and complimenting them, and they were starting to feel empowered and seen like they'd never been seen in the relationship, now they started to realize, you know what? I can do this. I can be on my own. I can get that job. I can earn. I can taste money myself through hard work. I can put my focus into something. I'm going to respect my body and not stuff it with the sugar and the cakes and the processed food. I'm going to make an effort to cook healthier and better. I'm going to make an effort to cook things I want to eat because I've always been the giving person that cooked for everyone else. I'm going to cook things I feel are nutritious to my body. I'm going to move my body. I'm going to practice looking after my mental health. I'm going to spend time reading 10 minutes a day, listening to a podcast that enriches me. I'm going to spend time meditating and learning what that could do for me. I'm going to invest in learning about my nervous system and how to regulate myself. I'm going to teach my body it can trust me and it can be safe. I'm going to learn breathing techniques that ground me. I'm going to stop falling in love with myself and feel strong in the situation I'm in right now. And I can't leave, but I can find myself. And hell, I can build an environment in this environment, because that's what my strength does. My strength tells me that I'm weak, and that's fine, and I need to rest. And my strength also tells me when I have enough in me to keep going. But I need to invest in myself so that I can keep going. Then there's the other aspect of, before you leave, making and investing in that relationship. So let's say you're somebody that knows you're going to leave, you want to leave, you've made the decision, you've understood this person's not going to change, there's no communication, there's no intimacy, there's no connection. They are cheating on you, they're abusing you, or they're completely numb and indifferent to you. You're sleeping in 2 different rooms. Every time you're around them, they breathe heavy or they're irritated with you. This relationship is not growing. They don't want to invest. They don't want to change. And you still love them. Well, one of the things I always advise people to do is take accountability and responsibility for your part first. Where are you reacting? Where are you shouting? Where are you not showing up? Where are you out of kilter in that relationship? How can you start setting boundaries, showing up with respect for yourself? Not the person throwing something across the room, not the person threatening suicide, not the person packing your bags for the 700th time, and now they don't even flinch because they know you're going nowhere. Because in the beginning, when you'd pack your bag, it would scare them and they would come chase you and take your stuff out. And now they don't even care. So you don't even go down that road. What could you do to take accountability and really try with this person? Well, the first thing I would do is I would first tell you, look at where you are not communicating to the best levels you can. Where have you stopped being vulnerable? Where have you stopped showing up? Of course, so naturally we withdraw when we're not being seen and we're not being given love. But if you're sitting there saying, I want to know that I left and I gave that relationship 170%, that when I leave, there's nothing in my mind that can tell me I didn't try. Then I would tell you to become a better communicator. I would tell you to watch your reactions. I would tell you to regulate yourself around their moods, because they are not the ones changing. I would tell you to start having conversations with them where you create room for their feelings, their pain, and their behavior, not excusing it, but creating room to see they are who they are because they're wounded, they're hurt, and they don't have the capacity and ability to heal. So how, before I leave, can I give it the next 3 months, 6 months, or 9 months of everything? Meaning I show up, I'm not going to shout. If they shout at me, I'm going to tell them, I'm not willing to have this conversation right now with both of us in this mood. I love you. I care for you. I really am deeply trying. I'm feeling exhausted, but I'm going to give this everything. And I'm telling you right now, if you can't meet me back in the same way that I'm meeting you, this relationship's not going to work. And you will either have a partner that awakens and realizes they love you and they want to try, because in you creating safety for yourself, you're creating safety in that relationship and they can now open up to you. Or they will naturally feel you're not the person that they enjoy being with, because the joy, the excitement, the addiction to the toxic levels that you both experience, the highs, the lows, the screaming, the shouting, the crazy makeup sex, or the screaming, the shouting, and the no sex at all, because they are driven with guilt and don't want to see you, touch you, and desire you. That is no longer there from your side. You're not feeding that addiction, so they're out. They're going to go look for someone else that they can get that from. But I would tell you to show up as your best version, with your calmness, with truly working on who you are, with time to feel proud and admire who you are again, with grounding yourself in your security to sit there and listen to them and create space for them to go into that relationship and say, I know you're angry right now, and I know you're talking, and I know you're shouting at me right now in this tone. And it's not because you don't love me, it's because you're in so much pain and you're so fed up of the situation that we're in. I see that. And I'm here. Where can I meet you halfway? And you go into that relationship curious. You drop all the stories that you've had. Obviously, you stay safe. You don't allow any abuse, physically or emotionally or verbally. The boundaries, meaning you turn around and tell them, I will not stand here and be abused. I'm not abusing you. I'm not engaging back in the way I used to, so I'm not going to allow you to do that to me. Would you like us to take 10 minutes out or 2 minutes out, or could we just stop the abuse right now? And you show up in that relationship in a way that takes vulnerability and courage and grit and maturity. And then if that relationship changes, great. But if it doesn't, then you know you gave everything that you needed to give. Because here's the truth about staying or leaving. It is so complex. It is so lonely. It is scary. There's so much uncertainty. And then let's talk about the fact that we've given our time to someone, and some people feel that they have to be rewarded for that time. But we also have to get clear that a relationship has come to an end when you don't emotionally feel safe, physically feel safe, when you are stifled, when you are oppressed, when you are suppressed, when someone takes your voice away, when you cannot talk, when you sit in a toilet crying, when you lay in bed crying, when you're depressed, where you idolize suicide, where you don't have the energy to get out and see friends or meet friends because the energy is spent in surviving the day around this person or surviving not being around them so you don't get attacked. We don't stay in relationships where we're not wanted, but a lot of the times we don't want ourselves. And until we want ourselves and we love ourselves and we nurture ourselves and we respect ourselves and we honor ourselves, and we literally have the dignity to stand up straight and fix that crown back on, whether you're male or female, and say, I am worthy. And I'm so worthy, I'm not going to tolerate this anymore. Then we leave. So if you're listening to this episode right now and you're thinking, I needed to hear that I'm worthy and I'm worth more, and I have this pain inside that is killing me, but I needed a friend, I needed a coach, I needed somebody to tell me I'm worth so much more, then I'm here to tell you, you are worth so much more. And I see you, and I validate your pain, and I give you the tightest hug. And I would encourage you, when you're listening to this, to put your arms around yourself, because the brain cannot tell the difference when you hug yourself or someone hugs you. And I would tell you to give yourself the tightest hug, and I would tell you to cut yourself some slack, because you've been through hell. And you are an incredible person for trying to make this relationship work. And I want you to know that you are a beautiful, loyal, incredible person, but you also deserve to be alone. And you deserve to be loved by yourself first. And you deserve to be seen by yourself. And you deserve to sit in a different kind of pain. You deserve to sit in the pain of healing, not the pain of surviving and not focusing on healing. You deserve no additional pain, but to be able to now sit and say, what happened to me? What did I tolerate? Why did I tolerate that? And I'm ready to leave and be brave and go into the fear of not knowing and figuring it out. And that's okay. It's okay to start again. And if you have to stay, then I want you to know that you are so brave and you are incredible. But if you're going to stay, you need to start honoring your space and the space you bring to that relationship. And you need to start to have respect for your voice because it has so much to say and it's so weighty. And the world needs people like you who are incredible and brave. And if you have to stay, then you need to start focusing on the things that make you happy. And you need to understand when the person you're with takes a poke at you or tries to bring you down, it's because they crave your attention in the wrong way. And they're not willing to learn how to get it in a better way. And when you start to vocalize and have boundaries, something really shifts inside of you. And if your children are watching you going through a hard time, talk to them. Be brave enough to break the norms and explain to your children and say sorry to your children and cry with your children and be vulnerable with your children. Because can I tell you something? As a parent, you're a human. You're doing this for the first time. And I don't think anybody pauses to realize that. Your children deserve to see somebody human that makes mistakes but values themselves enough to find a way to get out of really tough situations so that they can grow up and say, I don't need to stay in a bad situation because the person I respected and loved, which was my mom and dad, did that. They can grow up and say, I don't need to stay in this kind of relationship because I watched my mom and dad stay and I watched it break them. And I don't want to be that person. So I know that this can be a really, really heavy conversation. But I want you to know that it's never simple. It's never easy until it is simple and it is easy. And that sometimes takes time. Sometimes you can be in a really abusive, toxic relationship for such a long time, and you only start to realize how bad things get when different life events hit that kind of person. So I'm not talking about the gray. I'm not talking about normal relationships going through tough seasons. I'm talking about a relationship that the tough season becomes the habit and that becomes comfortable. Or I'm talking about being with somebody that wants to keep you in that relationship because they can control you. And they know how to work your empathy and your softness and your kindness. Because you'll always stay. You'll never go. They take you for granted. They know religiously, culturally, you can't leave. But that's never the case. You should never be in an environment that is oppressing you. You should never be in an environment that exhausts you into wanting to literally not be here anymore. And a lot of times we're so consumed by those feelings and trying to feel better and get our partners to change so that we don't have to ever feel those things, that we don't realize we have the power within us. And the power within us comes when we become responsible and accountable for ourselves. And we sit and we answer some really painful questions on why we're tolerating what we're tolerating. So if you're at the end of your do I leave journey and this was just the little edge you needed, I really hope that one day I connect with you or meet you or hear your story. And I'd love if you shared it so other people can get empowered. Or if you're the person just digesting that you need to leave and you know you need to leave, but you also know you have to stay, then you've heard enough on this podcast on how to be able to get through that and put yourself first and invest in yourself. But regardless of where you are on the do I leave journey, because it's a long road. Some people are at the end, some people are just starting, some people are in the middle and in the depths of their pain and they don't know if this will ever end. It ends when you stop looking for validation from the person that has no capacity and no emotional maturity to be able to show up for themselves. They cannot show up for you. I'd like to give you this beautiful example before I end, which is sometimes we love people that are a liter and you're a gallon. And you can imagine that a liter, if it was full to the brim, poured itself into you as a gallon, it would never fill you. And so what a lot of people do in these kind of dynamics is they fall in love with the liter. And the liter is really giving all it can. It can't give you more emotionally. It can't love you more. It can't expand. It can't fill. It's full to the brim. That's what it can give you. That's its capability. And it will fill you, and either you sit empty and you get comfortable with that, or you keep fighting yourself that this is not enough and you're done lowering your standards to be able to be in that relationship. And you realize that there's nothing wrong with the leader being the leader. It's full to its capacity, but I deserve a gallon. Like Julian Turecki says, find a giver that will give. Don't be the giver that finds a taker. And you got to really be able to think about something, which is, do they show up for you? Do they show up for themselves? If somebody doesn't show up for themselves, they're not going to show up for you. And to know if someone has the capacity, they have to want to change and make that relationship work. They have to have the ability to change and want to make that relationship work. And then they have to have the willingness to continue to do the work to make that relationship work. Those three things are what builds safety and trust in a relationship. So if you're with someone that wants to, I want to lose weight. I want to love you. I want to be a better partner. I want to show up for you. Great. That's step one. Do you have the ability to? Do you have the ability to want to lose weight? Do you have the ability to get into the gym and start eating healthy and cut out all the processed sugar and bad food? And then do you have the willingness to continue to go to the gym and go for your runs and start weighing your food and, increase your creatine and get onto the protein shakes and find a trainer? It's the same thing with a relationship. They want to have this amazing relationship with you. Do they have the ability to find the tools and get the therapy or listening to podcasts or learn from the YouTube videos to be able to know how to do that? And then do they have the willingness to consistently stay on that path and keep growing their tools to keep this relationship going? And that's really important for you to consider. Are you with somebody that just wants to? And are you going to live with someone that wants to for the rest of their life? Or are you with someone that has the ability to get it done and the willingness to want to show up for you? And then in the same breath, are you the partner that gives them what they deserve too? Are you withholding from your partner? Has this relationship made you withdraw and not want to give and shut down and made you bitter and made you angry and made you numb? Because then you're not being your best self. So you want to be with somebody that brings out the best in you, but you bring out the best in them, but they bring out the best in themselves and you bring out the best in yourself. So inevitably you fill each other in the best way possible. So I know that this is not an easy conversation and there's so much to discuss and look at, but I really wanted to have a conversation that was different to the simple, these are the 12 reasons you should look at, and if these 12 things exist in the relationship, then you should leave. I really wanted to be able to also cover the fact that it's not that easy, it's not that simple, and there shouldn't be any shame if you have to stay. Because sometimes we stay and we become the best versions of ourselves, and then we have a story, and that story will empower so many other people around you. So you got this, and I really believe in you, and I want you to know you're worthy, but I want you to start embodying that worth. So write to me and let me know how you're feeling. And I respect you, and I can only pray and hope that this pain you're in ends soon, because you're worthy of a new kind of pain that life will give you, but not this kind of pain. You're worthy of somebody seeing you. You're worthy of normal disagreements and normal fights in a relationship. You're worthy of someone that wants to repair with you. You are worthy of someone wanting to get up at 9 a.m. and make sandwiches and take you out and want to spoil you, and someone that listens to you and fits your bids and your cues and would go and address their attachment styles to be able to love you best. So I see you. I love you. Give yourself a big hug and let yourself know that you're on the best journey. And what are the odds? I'm probably going to have to take the sound out, but my cat's purring as I say this because she's feeling all the love for you too. Thank you for spending this time with me on Love Better. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who could use a little more love today. Don't forget to subscribe so we can keep growing together. You can find me on your socials, Instagram at Shazmin Bank, TikTok at Shazmin_bank. And I'd love to hear your thoughts and really connect with you more. Until next time, take care of your heart and remember you are worthy of love that truly feels like home.